The Martinez family Christmas party was always held at my grandparents' mansion in the suburbs of Boston. As I pulled up in my 10-year-old Toyota Camry, I could already see the lineup of luxury vehicles, my cousin's Mercedes, BMWs, and the occasional Porsche gleaming under the winter sun. I adjusted my simple black dress, designer, though they'd never recognize it without obvious logos, and grabbed the stack of gift-wrapped packages from my back seat. The security guard at the gate, who'd known me since childhood, gave me a sympathetic smile. He'd seen how things had changed over the years. "Merry Christmas, Miss Sophia," he said warmly. "They're all in the main hall." I could hear the party before I saw it. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the unmistakable sound of my family competing to outdo each other with tales of their success. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the heavy oak doors. "Oh my God, is that actually Sophia in that ancient car?" My cousin Isabella's voice carried across the hall, dripping with mock concern. "Honey, if you needed help with transportation you could have just asked." I forced a smile, remembering that I owned the company that manufactured the leather seats in her precious Mercedes. "The Camry's reliable. It gets me where I need to go." "Where's that? The unemployment office?" My cousin Marcus chimed in, causing several family members to snicker. He was flush with success from his recent promotion to vice president at Morrison Industries, our family's main business rival. I set my gifts down carefully under the enormous Christmas tree. The packages were wrapped in simple paper, nothing like the elaborate golden wrapping my cousins favored. They had no way of knowing that each contained rare handcrafted items I'd had shipped from artisans around the world. "Sophia, darling." My Aunt Carmen swooped in, air-kissing my cheeks. "We missed you at the country club's charity gala last month. Though I suppose the ticket price was a bit prohibitive for your situation." The situation she referred to was my supposed failure in life. 10 years ago, I'd walked away from my guaranteed position at Martinez Global, our family's company, to start my own business. They'd all predicted I'd come crawling back within months. "I was in Singapore that week," I said simply. What I didn't mention was that I'd been there closing a deal that made my company the majority shareholder in Asia's largest tech manufacturing consortium. Singapore. Isabella's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. "What could you possibly be doing in Singapore?" "Probably teaching English or something equally humiliating," Marcus Stage whispered to his wife, who giggled behind her champagne glass. I accepted a glass of wine from a passing server, hiding my smile. The server worked for my catering company, one of the many businesses I'd quietly acquired over the years. In fact, this entire party was being catered by my staff, though my family had no idea they were essentially paying me to feed them. "Actually, I was meeting with some investors," I said mildly. "Investors?" Marcus scoffed. "In what? Your little consulting business? Please, Sophia. We all know you're barely keeping afloat. It's actually admirable how you refuse to admit failure. If only they knew that my little consulting business was actually Phoenix Global Partners, one of the most powerful investment firms in Asia. The company that was, at this very moment, orchestrating a complicated takeover of Morrison Industries. The very company Marcus was so proud of working for." "Speaking of business," Isabella chimed in, "Marcus just closed an amazing deal with Morrison Industries." "Tell her, Marcus." Marcus puffed up like a peacock. "Just a small merger. $400 million. Nothing you'd understand, Sophia. It's high-level corporate strategy." I sipped my wine to hide my expression. The merger he was so proud of was actually a carefully planned step in my company's takeover strategy. Morrison Industries was bleeding money, though they didn't know it yet. Each merger, each acquisition they celebrated was actually bringing them closer to my control. "That's impressive," I said sincerely, because it was just not in the way they thought. Now, my father interrupted, joining our circle. "Let's not talk business on Christmas. Though Sophia, honey, my offer still stands. There's always a place for you at Martinez Global, even if it's just in middle management." 10 years ago his condescension would have hurt. Now it was almost amusing, considering I own nearly 30% of Martinez Global through various shell companies. Another fact my family remained blissfully unaware of. "Thanks, Dad, but I'm doing fine on my own." "Fine." My mother appeared, martini in hand. "Darling, you live in a rented apartment and drive a car that's older than Isabella's designer handbag collection. That's not fine, that's surviving." I didn't bother correcting her assumption about my living situation. Let them think I rented the penthouse I owned outright. Let them believe I couldn't afford better than my carefully maintained Camry. Their underestimation had been my greatest advantage for years. "Oh my God," Isabella suddenly squealed, pointing at my shoes. "Are those from last season's collection? Sophia, you should have said something. I have a whole closet of barely worn designer shoes I was going to donate." "You're welcome to them." The shoes in question were actually custom-made by an Italian craftsman who only produced 12 pairs per year. The waiting list was 3 years long, but being his company's majority investor had its perks. "That's very generous," I said, wondering what Isabella would think if she knew I owned controlling shares in her favorite designer brands. "We just want to help," my mother sighed dramatically. "It pains us to see you struggling when everyone else is doing so well. Look at Marcus, youngest VP in Morrison Industries history." Marcus preened. "It's true. In fact, we're about to announce another major acquisition. Very hush-hush, but it's going to change everything." I checked my watch discreetly. Right about now, my team in Singapore would be finalizing the paperwork that would begin Morrison Industries' downfall. Marcus had no idea that his major acquisition was actually a trap, carefully set and about to snap shut. "Speaking of Morrison Industries," my father said, "I heard rumors they're having some problems with their Asian market strategy. Nothing serious but concerning for their long-term stability." "Nonsense," Marcus declared confidently. "We've never been stronger. This merger I'm working on will cement our position globally." "What merger is that?" my Aunt Carmen asked eagerly, as Marcus launched into a carefully sanitized version of the deal, leaving out the parts that would expose how desperate Morrison Industries actually was. I felt my phone vibrate in my clutch. The room suddenly went quiet as my ringtone cut through Marcus's boasting. "Excuse me," I said, checking the display. "I need to take this." "Really, Sophia?" my mother sighed. "On Christmas." I stepped slightly away from the group but made sure to stay within earshot. "This is Sophia Martinez," I answered, my voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Ms. Martinez," my assistant's crisp voice came through clearly. "The Singapore team has confirmed all positions. Should we proceed with the Morrison acquisition as planned?" I could see Marcus freeze mid-sentence, his face going pale as the words Morrison acquisition registered. Isabella's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. "Yes," I said calmly, watching my family's expressions change from condescension to confusion to dawning horror. "Tell the team to proceed. And make sure all paperwork is filed before the markets open tomorrow." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the Christmas music playing softly in the background seemed to fade away. "Sophia," my father said slowly, "what exactly do you do in Singapore?" I smiled, reaching into my clutch and pulling out a business card. Simple, elegant, with just 2 words and a phone number. Phoenix Global Partners. Marcus's face went from pale to ashen as recognition set in. Everyone in the corporate world knew Phoenix Global Partners, the mysterious investment firm that had been systematically acquiring companies across Asia. The firm whose CEO had never been publicly named. "That's impossible," he whispered. "You're just a failed consultant. You can't be." My phone buzzed again with another message. Perfect timing as always. "If you'll excuse me," I said pleasantly, "I need to take this." "Oh, and Marcus? About that merger you're so proud of? We should probably talk about that after the holidays. I have some changes in mind." The next few minutes were chaos. Marcus fumbled with his phone, presumably trying to reach someone at Morrison Industries. Isabella's perfectly made-up face had gone from smug to stunned. My father stood frozen, his champagne forgotten in his hand. "Phoenix Global Partners," he whispered, recognition dawning in his eyes. "The company that's been buying up tech manufacturers across Asia. The one that just acquired the Singapore Digital Hub." "The same," I confirmed, slipping my phone back into my clutch. "Though we do more than just tech acquisitions. For instance, we own several luxury automotive component manufacturers. The leather in Isabella's Mercedes? That's one of our subsidiaries." Isabella nearly dropped her champagne glass. But that's a multi-billion-dollar company," my mother stammered. "The financial papers call it one of the most influential investment firms in Asia." "They do," I agreed, "though they've never quite figured out who runs it." Prestigious business magazines keep publishing theories about some mysterious old Asian tycoon. I smiled. Never suspected it might be your struggling daughter, did they? Marcus had gone from pale to slightly green. The Morrison merger. You can't. Can't what, Marcus? Can't stop it? Can't take control of the company you've spent years bragging about? I pulled out a slim folder from my clutch. Maybe we should discuss how Morrison Industries has been hiding its debt through creative accounting. Section 3 of this report is particularly interesting. He slumped into the nearest chair looking like he might be sick. Sophia, my father stepped forward, his business instincts taking over. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Family shouldn't negotiate through intermediaries. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Funny how I'm suddenly family now. 10 minutes ago I was just your embarrassing daughter who needed charity shoes. Isabella flinched at the reminder of her condescending offer. Ms. Martinez? A new voice interrupted. James, my head of operations, had appeared at my elbow. Singapore is asking for final confirmation on the Morrison acquisition timeline. Tell them to proceed as planned, I said, watching Marcus's face crumple. But hold off on the press release until tomorrow. It's Christmas after all. My mother finally found her voice. All these years, you let us think. I let you think exactly what you wanted to think, I finished for her. That was a failure. That walking away from Martinez Global was the biggest mistake of my life. That I couldn't succeed without family connections. But why? Isabella asked, genuine confusion in her voice. Why pretend to be poor? I laughed softly. I wasn't pretending to be poor, Isabella. I was living within reasonable means while building something of my own. Not everything has to be about showing off wealth. The Camry, my father started, is a reliable car that gets excellent gas mileage, I cut in. Though I do also own several other vehicles, including, ironically, the company that manufactures custom parts for that Porsche you're so proud of. The Christmas tree lights twinkled merrily, casting colorful shadows across the scene of my family's collective realization. Years of superiority, of casual cruelty disguised as concern, of dismissing my choices, all crumbling in a matter of minutes. What happens now? Marcus asked quietly. With Morrison Industries? I considered him for a moment. That depends. The company has potential, but its current leadership is more concerned with appearances than actual business strategy. Sound familiar? He had the grace to look ashamed. I'm willing to maintain current employment levels through the transition, I continued, though there will be some changes in upper management, starting with a full audit of all executive decisions made in the last 5 years. Marcus went even paler if that was possible. Sophia, my father tried again, his voice taking on the persuasive tone he used for business negotiations. Surely we can come to some family arrangement. Your expertise combined with Martinez Global's resources. Dad, I interrupted gently. Phoenix Global Partners already owns 28% of Martinez Global. The silence that followed was deafening. How? He whispered. Shell companies, careful investments, strategic planning. Everything you taught me, actually. I just applied it differently. My mother sank into a chair, her martini trembling in her hand. All this time I was building something real, I said. Not just acquiring things to show off, not just chasing status symbols, but creating actual value. While you were all bragging about charity galas and country club memberships, I was working with innovative companies, funding educational initiatives, developing sustainable business practices. The Singapore Digital Hub, my father said slowly. That wasn't just an acquisition, was it? The new technical training programs, the community development projects. I nodded. Business isn't just about profit margins, Dad. Sometimes it's about making things better, not just bigger. James appeared again. Ms. Martinez? The Tokyo office is calling about the Education Technology Initiative. Tell them I'll call back in an hour, I said. It's Christmas. Family time. The irony of those words hung in the air. Isabella suddenly laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. All those times we invited you on luxury vacations, offered you hand-me-downs, you probably owned the hotels we were staying in. Not all of them, I smiled. Just the good ones. Slowly the shock began to wear off. My father looked at me with new eyes. Not just recognition of my success, but perhaps understanding of what he'd missed all these years. My mother kept opening her mouth to speak, then closing it again, decades of patronizing attitudes warring with this new reality. The charitable foundation, Marcus said suddenly. The one funding tech education in underprivileged areas. That's you too, isn't it? I nodded. Phoenix Foundation. We're opening 3 new training centers next year. Could. He hesitated. Could I learn more about that? The education initiatives, I mean. It sounds more meaningful than what I've been doing. For the first time that evening, I saw something genuine in my cousin's expression. Not just fear for his job, but actual interest. Come by my office after the holidays, I said. We'll talk. As the evening continued, the dynamics shifted palpably. The boasting stopped. The condescension vanished. Instead, real conversations started emerging. Isabella asked thoughtful questions about sustainable manufacturing. My father wanted to discuss educational technology investments. My mother pulled me aside as I was preparing to leave. I don't understand, she said quietly. If you had all this success, why drive an old car? Why live simply? Why not show everyone what you'd achieved? I looked at her designer dress, her expensive jewelry, all the trappings she'd always thought represented success. Because I wanted to build something that mattered more than appearances. Because true success isn't about showing off. It's about creating value, making a difference. And we never saw it, she whispered. We were so busy looking at the surface we missed everything that mattered. Maybe that's the best Christmas gift I could give you, I said softly. A chance to see things differently. As I drove home in my practical, reliable Camry, I thought about success and appearances, about family and forgiveness. Tomorrow, the business world would be buzzing with news of Phoenix Global Partners' latest acquisition. My family would have to adjust to a new reality where their failing relative was actually a powerful business leader. But tonight had given me hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd learn something more important than my net worth. They'd learned that success doesn't always wear designer labels, that power doesn't need to announce itself, and that sometimes the most impressive achievements are the ones you don't see coming. James texted one final update. Morrison acquisition proceeding smoothly. Board meeting scheduled for December 26th. Merry Christmas, Ms. Martinez. I smiled, thinking of the changes ahead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others have built, but about showing them a better way to build. After all, true power isn't about domination. It's about transformation. And maybe that's what Christmas miracles are really about. Not just changing circumstances, but changing perspectives. Even if it takes a multi-billion-dollar revelation to make it happen.